Hi there. My name is Jenya. I'm a PhD student, I'm an author, and I'm also a survivor of severe childhood trauma. I'm also a university lecturer, and I'm also a tarot reader. and I'm a highly spiritual person who used to be like a super atheistic, super skeptical of anything woo. And this is rather important because today I want to discuss my trauma healing journey, as I do on this channel. And specifically, I want to discuss how my spirituality helped my trauma healing journey and how it enhanced my healing from my childhood trauma wounds. I've talked about my childhood trauma journey in general in another video, so I won't go into all that here. But I will say that I'm from an immigrant background. My parents are working class immigrants from Kazakhstan to Germany, where I grew up. And my childhood home was very chaotic. I experienced different types of abuse and was witness to them as a child and youth. And I moved out at about 18 years old to go to university. And that's also when my trauma healing journey began, because I pretty quickly became aware of the effects of my childhood on me. So about around 19, 20 years old, I was aware that I had lived through a pretty traumatizing childhood and youth, and I gradually became aware of more of the traumatizing aspects of that. And I pretty quickly entered therapy. So around 20, 21 years old, I was in therapy, in talk therapy specifically, for about 3.5 years in total, with a break in between. And throughout that time, I gradually became more and more spiritual. So, as I said, I used to be super atheistic, super skeptical about everything that I considered religious or spiritual. And I had a lot of preconceptions about people who are deemed religious or spiritual, namely that they were naive or stupid or whatever. So I was very judgmental of that. And so it's actually interesting to think back on my mindfulness journey and my spirituality journey, which began because I had trouble sleeping. So one of my trauma symptoms was that I had incredible anxiety, which meant it was very difficult for me to fall asleep at night. And I tried everything, sleep hygiene, this and that, and it did help. But I remember looking up. I distinctly remember, like, during a sleepless night, looking at what could help me fall asleep, and someone suggested meditation. And I'd never meditated before. I didn't really I didn't really know what meditation is. I assumed it's something that only Buddhist monks do. And so I looked up how to meditate, and I downloaded an app for guided sleep meditations, and I started doing these every single night for many months. And I remember how difficult it was in the beginning. How really, as I tried to meditate, I just became aware of the endless chatter in my mind. And so that's how I came into contact with mindfulness, which was one of the instrumental modalities that helped me heal, which I mentioned in another video, on the top 9 modalities that helped me heal my childhood trauma when therapy couldn't. Because truth is that the talk therapy I was in, actually, I can't say that it didn't help, because obviously I can't compare. I don't know what it would have been like for me without that therapy, but I can certainly say that it exacerbated a lot of my trauma symptoms, because during talk therapy, we would rehash the details of my traumatic childhood, but I wasn't actually given any proper tools to deal with the sensations that came up in my body as a result of that, namely my anxiety. So as I discovered meditation and mindfulness for myself, as I said, I became more aware of the chatter in my mind, but I also learned how to manage it better. And after a few months, I realized that I could actually fall asleep better, and that I actually gradually became aware of the power of my thoughts and of the fact that sometimes, and that had never been possible before in my life, sometimes I could actually find pockets of time, some like small moments in which I actually wasn't thinking, but I was still aware of myself. And I think this must have been like the first time in my life, like about 20 years old, where I could have moments of awareness without this constant monologue in my mind. And that is how I gradually became aware of the fact that I am not my thoughts. And I had always thought I was my thoughts. I mean, what else are you supposed to be, right? But as I said, through this meditation journey, I realized that there's something more. There was something more to me. And this really, like, I cannot overstate the importance of that realization, because this is what drove me to open my mind and to some of the modalities I will talk about later, and also what allowed me to depersonalize my trauma healing journey. And which is interesting because obviously my trauma healing journey is extremely personal. It's about me, but it allowed me to see that I was not on this journey because I had done something wrong or because I was somehow unworthy of having had a secure childhood. But actually, I realized that this was like that many people had experienced similar things because as I began looking more into meditation, I discovered that many people actually used meditation to deal with anxiety. So I wasn't the only one suffering from it. And it also, like, I lost my train of thought for a moment. So meditation allowed me to depersonalize my trauma healing journey, as I said. And it made me curious about what else was out there, because I had never been aware of the fact that I could take a step back and just observe myself. And as I said, that kickstarted this entire spirituality journey for me, because it was around that time, after I had started meditation, I believe, that I first ventured into tarot reading. And so I ordered my first tarot deck when I was about 21 years old. And to be honest, I did it just I had some pull towards it, and I think it was mostly for the aesthetics of it. I had no idea what tarot is or how to read it. So if you're not familiar with that, tarot is a card reading system. It's a divination system, so it's mostly associated with fortune telling. And so I had this deck in my card deck in my possession that I would just look at. I really didn't know what to do with it. I tried reading it, but I didn't understand it. Also because every tarot deck comes with a little booklet that explains the cards, and the booklet that came with this deck wasn't really, it didn't use the traditional meanings, because a tarot deck has a very traditional format to it. And so I didn't really know what to do with it. But I would occasionally look at the cards, and I don't know, something would pull me towards them. So I continued. This went on for a while. I would meditate. I went to therapy. I tried other things, but it was really the meditation I stuck with over many years. And then about 4 years ago, I really got serious with tarot reading. And by serious, I mean I was very bored during the events of 2021. And so I picked up this deck of cards I had lying around again. And this time I really dove into it deep. For 2 years, that was essentially the majority of what I did, was learn how to read tarot and what I could really use it for. Because it was also during this time that I had a really intense focus on my healing journey. And I realized that actually tarot, it wasn't just pretty pictures that could be used for your fortune telling. But it was, which is not to discredit that, because a lot of the how should I say, the misconceptions people have around tarot reading and a lot of the prejudice people have towards it is based on like the fortune telling aspect of it, and that fortune telling aspect is mostly like it's very much related to Romani culture. And from what I understand, a lot of the prejudice towards tarot is actually stems from anti-Romani sentiments. So I don't want to like give the appearance that I'm trying to remove myself too much from that. So, but anyway, how I first came to tarot was not through the divination aspect, but through the psychological angle, or what I would say. And that means that I was using the tarot readings to really reflect on myself, reflect on who I was as a person, on my situation. Because with the tarot reading, what it is that you ask a question and then you either pull one card or you pull multiple cards that you can put like in a specific layout, and that layout can determine how the answer to your question is structured. And so I started experimenting with that. I started just looking at the cards, exploring the imagery, because tarot cards usually have very distinct imagery, and they have very distinct archetypes that are represented in them. And as I did that, I really did that as a self-reflection exercise. And gradually, the more I did so, the more I could find myself in certain archetypes, and the more I could, again, depersonalize my trauma healing journey. And I could ask, what aspect of myself do I see represented in this card? Or what aspect of myself do I not see represented in this? What aspects do I have resistance towards? And how can I work with that resistance? And this is very like high-level overview because I don't want to go too much into that in this video. But essentially, as I said, I started using tarot cards really to explore this psychological angle of childhood trauma healing. And throughout, like, you know, that then I was still meditating, obviously. And I don't know how to describe this. Because this is not necessarily something that can be intellectually grasped, but really something that has to be experienced. Which is not to say that you have to experience it, just that it's impossible really to explain this on words. But the more I practiced this, the more I felt connected to this tarot practice, to my cards, to these versions of myself. I could see it in my practice. And the more like the spiritual angle to reading tarot developed for me, because I would see these symbols that I would like connect to on a like not intellectual level, but really emotional level. And so I started asking questions, not just from this like psychological lens, like how am I, for example, asking how am I interpreting the situation and then pulling cards for it, but really in the sense of what is my spiritual journey on this planet? Who am I? And what lessons can I really find? What golden nuggets can I find in my trauma healing journey? Or in my trauma, rather. And that became part of my trauma healing journey. And so I also dove into some other spiritual practices, so I can just put it on tarot, but tarot was the catalyst for me. And essentially, what happened is that I actually developed a much more... So you see, when like your brain, when you're a child, when you're an infant, is trying to make sense of the world. I mean, your brain is always doing that, but especially when you're growing up in your development, one of the tasks of the brain is to develop a map of your environments. And it does that based on your experiences in life. And if your experiences in life are painful, as it usually is with trauma survivors, the brain will develop a map of the world that understands the world to be a dangerous and harmful place. And that is always how I had seen the world. I had always understood the world to be very unsafe for me. And gradually, through my spiritual practice, as I started to develop more curiosity about the world, especially the world we do not see, I gradually began to ask the question, is the world an unsafe place? Because if I believe that there is a purpose to life, which I definitely do, I do now, then what could be the purpose behind all the suffering and danger we see? And I won't pretend to have an answer to this. It's still like one of the many, like one of the strongest questions I really have. But I could at least find answers for me. And somehow I came to the answer that the reason I did have the childhood I have was because some like part of me before I was born, I don't know, chose these experiences. And that's not to say that this is like a way of taking responsibility off of my parents or anyone else, but and it's not a way to say like, oh, I chose this, so it's fine. It's not. But it like this idea really became a way for me, a window into making sense of what had happened to me, and making sense of what has happened to you, finding in the sense of finding purpose for yourself in it is actually one of the most healing things when it comes to trauma. It's what determines whether you will experience post-traumatic growth. And so to me, this realization I came to through my spirituality really became another huge aspect of my trauma healing journey. There are some other practices I really dove into during that time, also connected to tarot reading, specifically inner child healing and shadow work. But I mentioned those in another video, so I won't go into these here. And so, yeah, as I said, like spirituality really became the bridge for me to where I didn't feel so trapped by what had happened to me, but rather I saw the possibilities and who I could choose to become. Yeah, so that's my journey to make this, because I always want to leave you with some practical steps, especially if you finish this video, which was rather self-centered. I would definitely suggest, if you're on a trauma healing journey and this is new to you, I would definitely suggest meditation. As I said, I started with guided sleep meditations, and I feel like guided meditations are actually the easiest, easy start point for you. Because when you've never meditated before, like it will be very difficult. And guided meditations give you this, like, you're doing it for 10 minutes, you know that it's happening for 10 minutes, and it gives you something to focus on, which is, when you're just starting out, it's useful. I don't know what to tell you. And I specifically use the Calm app, so CALM, for my meditations. I don't use it anymore because I've been meditating for so many years that I prefer other types of meditation or self-guided meditations. But that's an amazing app. I'm not affiliated with it in any way, but it's really, what I used for many years, what started this entire journey for me, and I will be forever thankful for that. So you will find guided meditations there, you will find breath exercises there. Last I knew, they also had special courses there, and so I cannot recommend it highly enough. I also mentioned shadow work and inner child healing. I explained these in my last video specifically, and about what is inner child work, why is it beneficial for childhood trauma survivors, and how you can use that. I included some easy practices in the last video that you could try. And obviously, because I focus so much on tarot reading, I also highly recommend tarot reading if you're delving into spirituality. And as I said, you can really look at tarot reading from a psychological angle. Like, it doesn't have to be objectively true. You can just use it as a thought exercise, essentially. You can do that either by reading tarot for yourself, or you can do that by having someone else read tarot for you. And I will say I started by just reading for myself. I started by just looking at cards, really not really knowing what I was doing. So, and that can be highly beneficial because it's so personal. So if you have the means, I definitely recommend getting like a cheap tarot deck. One of the traditional decks really normally isn't expensive, and if you feel called to do this, you can just buy the deck. You can look at the cards, and then you will see whether you have interest in actually studying this entire. How should I describe it? This entire discipline of tarot, or whether you want to just engage with it in a like low-key personal way, and both of them are valid because I did both of them personally, and I found both of them valuable. Or you can also have someone else read tarot for you. As I mentioned, there are many ways to read tarot. One of the traditional ways would be to use it for fortune telling. But if you're looking for childhood trauma healing, then yeah, that's not necessarily the path I would recommend. Also because a lot of fortune telling can be pretty disempowering. It can make you feel like, yeah, you're not an actor in your world, but rather that you're an object that the world acts upon. And that's personally not what I believe to contribute to trauma healing. But rather, if you're looking for someone to do a tarot reading for you, I would focus on readings that, yeah, place the power on you as an agent. And so you could, for example, look at certain situations in your present life to try to explore them from different angles and find out how your trauma is affecting your present. That's just one example that comes to mind. I'm actually thinking of opening up some spots for tarot reading myself. It's been a while since I read for other people, but just because I found this to be such an incredibly useful tool for myself, I would like to keep that option open to hopefully show you how useful it can be and how healing it can be. And don't worry if you've never had a tarot reading before. Like most people I've read for have never had someone read tarot for them. And it's like the job of the reader is really to guide you through the reading and to help you develop a question that is empowering and to help you take away something that is empowering for you. At least that's my belief of what a tarot reader should do. Yeah, so I hope you took something from this video. It was pretty spontaneous, which is also why I was a bit all over the place. But as I said, spirituality was really instrumental in my childhood trauma healing journey. And I hope to explore it some more in this channel. So if you're interested in that, stay in touch with me by subscribing. Oh, also, if you actually want a tarot reading by me, I forgot to mention that I put my email information in the description box, along with some other links that you can look at. And yeah, as I said, this channel is about this entire thing, childhood trauma healing, not just in the context of spirituality, but also very much because the spirituality angle, while it was important for me, might not be too accessible for everyone. But what I really want to do is to make trauma healing accessible and to explain the tools that really help me. And let me just say, if I can do it, then you can do it as well. So, as I said, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. But also feel free to subscribe to my newsletter where I talk about what happens after trauma healing, because so much of trauma healing can feel as if we're stuck in this never-ending cycle of it can feel as if because you're a trauma survivor, you're doomed to have like this happy life. And I don't believe that. I'm actually very strongly believe that especially trauma survivors can have a happy and fulfilling life, and that's what I explore there. So yeah, thanks for being for staying here, for enjoying this a bit rambly video, but hopefully you took something from it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.